Namaste, Rahul ji. On behalf of Samvaad, I welcome you on this online chat, and this will hopefully reach all the audience who are looking for the topic today. Rahul ji, I'll just give the topic title, and then I'll like to introduce you to our audience wherever they are. The days of gurus, the days of books, I think are passing. We can't say they have terminated or become extinct, but the days of blogs and chats, I think, have made way more than any other form today. So I think your conversation today about the book that you have so very well translated will reach the public in due course. So the topic, Rahulji, on behalf of Samvaad, today is the book in original was written in Hindi, as you are very well aware. You are the one who's translated it. Hyderabad ka Mukti Sangram. Yeah, it has been titled as Liberation Struggle of Hyderabad. This
Yes.
original was penned, documented by Acharya Khanderao Kulakarni ji, about whom we'd like to listen from you. And before we listen intently about this book, the background, the author, I would like to introduce Rahul Shastri ji to all our viewers. Rahul Shastri ji is the current president of an organization called Samvit Kendra. He is a gold medalist in MA Economics and served in the Department of Economics in Osmania University. And incidentally, we will talk about Osmania University during our conversation, his alma mater. And he has published over 20 research papers and 3 books in economics. While he started with economics, but his interest, his knowledge goes beyond economics, and that is our interest today. So after a voluntary retirement in 2003, turning to areas of general public interest, he has authored 14 papers of general interest and published 5 books. 5 books, the topics which I will briefly cover with you, the viewers. The 5 books titles are The Founder of RSS, Dr. Hedgewar, Seer, Patriot and Nation Builder. And he has co-authored this with Ayush Nadimpalli. And Dr. Ambedkar on Nationalism was his another title. Then Dr. Ambedkar's Notes on Indian History, Denying National Roots and the Early Communism in India is another title. And today's title, the very talk that we are having as part of Samvaad, as we would like to call it, is on Liberation Struggle of Hyderabad, Some Unknown Pages by Acharya Khanderao Kulakarni ji and translated from Hindi into English by our esteemed guest, Rahul Shastri ji. So, Rahul Shastri ji, please pardon me if I have not covered anything else more important in your life to our audience. But before I hand over to you, I would like to tell the viewers that Rahul Shastri ji is not just an economist. He has a lot of knowledge in philosophy and religion, language and literature. So with that, I hand over to Rahul Shastri ji to tell us about a brief about the book before that further makes us dig into more question and answers today through this particular interview or a conversation or a chat, as viewers would like to call it. Please tell us, Rahul ji, about Hyderabad ka Mukti Sangram that you recently translated in English and about its author, Shri Khanderao Kulakarni ji. Over to you, Rahul ji.
It has been said that history repeats itself. George Santayana corrected that saying somewhat, saying that those who do not remember their history are condemned to repeat it. We might add, those who do not study their history are also condemned to repeat it. So therefore, it is important to know our history, because there are several occasions and circumstances in history where the forces that have driven the past continue to operate in the present and work towards, sometimes inexorably, towards a distant or near future. So therefore, history lives with us in a form of an undercurrent, though we are not aware of it. When we started this organization, Samvit Kendra, we wanted to record a part of our immediate history that was not only in danger of being forgotten, but was actually being whitewashed. That is the history of Hyderabad under Nizams, and particularly the history of our liberation struggle. This was possible because the Hyderabad liberation struggle was operative till 1948 September, which is almost 70 years back. So the generation that has lived through and been a eyewitness to that struggle has literally passed away, except for a few nonagenarians and centenarians. And because of this missing generation, a generation that has vanished, it was possible to rewrite history in order to further certain agendas, immediate politically advantageous agendas. So we were worried at Samvit Kendra that unless this part of history was retrieved and preserved for future generations, if problems surfaced which had been seen in the past, then the future generations would be in a position to understand them and grapple with them. And therefore, we started a project of going around Telangana regions, trying to find survivors of that old generation, interview them, and record their eyewitness accounts of their life during the freedom struggle and before. We did interview a few people, and then suddenly and accidentally, we came across this book written by Khanderao Kulakarni ji in Hindi, Hyderabad ka Mukti Sangram. And actually, we did not come across the Hindi version there. We came across the Telugu version. It had been translated by one of the revolutionary poets. They are called the Digambar Kaulu, Naxalite poets. One of them was working under him as a lecturer in Kesha Memorial High School. So he translated, I don't remember the name, probably it was Jwalamukhi. He translated his work in installments and published it in a newspaper virtually contemporaneously. This book was published somewhere in 70s, and that Telugu copy was forwarded to me. Then immediately I realized, because Khanderao ji was our patron and neighbor when I was a child, and I know him since childhood. And the entire locality knew him as Masterji because he was principal of Keshu Memorial High School, and he was a very elderly and good friend of our household and my mother and my parents actually. So, and I had gone when he was in his sick bed, and he gave me a copy of this book written in Hindi and published. On the first page, he had written that it is dedicated to given to my father, and he specifically asked me to give it to my father. I had taken it and given it to my father, then put it in our library in the old house. And it was forgotten. I tried to read it a couple of times, and then my Hindi is not so good actually. How I translated is another story. But anyway, so I did a few this thing, but I remembered it immediately. I said, I have seen this original, it is with me.
Oh.
And then with a lot of struggle, we managed to retrieve the copy. I know his family also. His elder son is still living. So we went to his house because for preparing this book, he must have gathered a lot of notes and material. Unfortunately, that has not survived him. Otherwise, we would have had a lot more material than just this book.
Okay.
But anyway, once we got this book, we decided we should translate it into Hindi, and we translated it into English, from Hindi to English. So that is the story behind the book. Now, the story behind the author.
Yes.
Master Khanderao Kulakarni ji, as I told you, he was known as Masterji. He was a disciplinarian, but a very benevolent soul. And when my mother transferred here from Bodhan, we were in a little financial difficulties. So he helped us out by seeing that my mother did some kind of honorary, semi-honorary kind of work, looking at students in his school and then elsewhere. So that helped us through a very difficult time. My mother knew him for almost 40 years. I mean, when she moved to Hyderabad, they were neighbors. So therefore, the family was known to us. What I did not know, and which I learned when I started reading the book seriously for the first time, was that he was a revolutionary in his youth. This background I did not know. And he was associated with the revolutionaries, and it is Binoy Kumar Sinha, Vijay Kumar Sinha, who wrote the foreword to his book. And Vijay Kumar Sinha is very well known in left circles. And then I realized that is why the revolutionary poet had translated it uh, into Telugu. So he had a revolutionary background. So he was in the best position to write something on the liberation struggle because he knew both the revolutionary viewpoint and he knew the actual suffering of the people, and he had a lot of personal acquaintances with the left. So therefore he went around the entire region. In 1970s it was still possible because the liberation struggle was just 40-year old. So therefore, he was able to gather a lot of eyewitness accounts, interview the participants themselves. And the book which he has produced is a literary marvel because he has made the characters and situations come alive. And how did he do this? He did it through selectivity. I am sure that he had covered 10 times more material than he has put in his book. What I found from the book is wherever he could make the characters come alive, those are the episodes that he has chosen for highlighting in his books. So, therefore, it is a collection of chapters, each chapter dealing with some set of people or some episode in some part of the old Hyderabad, whether it is Telangana, Marathwada, or Karnataka. And each episode is so detailed, both in terms of geography and in terms of the personalities involved, that the picture comes alive vividly. It is, in fact, you can say it is halfway between history and a novel. And that is what made it very interesting for me to translate. And though it was my first attempt at translating a major work in Hindi. I had done some articles earlier, some lectures and small articles, but this was my first major work, and I really learned a lot while doing it. So, this is what I can say about Masterji. He is very well known in old Hyderabadis.
Okay.
There are a lot of people who have passed out from Keshav Memorial who still remember him with a lot of affection and regard.
Rahulji, this is really exciting stuff. As exciting, while you are saying, I can relate to parts of it. It sounds like the characters coming alive, and the writings, whether was it originally done in Hindi and translated to Telugu, and you're getting a copy of it from the original writer Acharya Khanderao Kulakarni ji, or Masterji as you call him, or Master, that you have received, I think is all a divine plan for you to have had that copy, and later you are ready now to translate, to value it, and then give it to the next generation or generations. Now, for the benefit of the viewers, Rahul ji, tell us a little bit, because most won't understand about the geography, about the time frames, and maybe the bias that you as an author and me as the person chatting you on this topic, and Samvit Kendra can have to an event in the history, because people can construe it as an agenda or propaganda or a narrative that we are trying to build. Can you just tell us something about the geographical location of the extent of this whole problem, that was experienced by the people of this land? Today's generations understand Hyderabad, as the capital of Telangana, and maybe if they remember their younger days, they'll remember as both the Telugu states, that is today's Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, as the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. And going just beyond it, only a few probably would understand that Hyderabad is not today's Hyderabad. Then what is Hyderabad? What are the boundaries of Hyderabad? And who was ruling it? And what was the new element that came into this, you can say, political setup? What was the arrangement with the British of the Nizam? And tell us something about that. And I will not stop by saying that these stories that are in the book, that I have got an exposure to before I interview you, Rahulji, I just felt like each one of them is like the story of Paramveer Chakras. Each story with the hero in it, and I felt like the army, Indian army, in all the fronts, whenever it faced an enemy, had the weapons. Only in the Chinese war, they were short of weapons and equipment. But I felt that these heroes here locally in Hyderabad, what is Hyderabad? You won't tell us soon, did not even have the necessary weapons to defend themselves. Now tell us about the geography, Rahulji, and the political setup.
See, the Hyderabad that we are speaking of in this book that I have translated, which Khanderao wrote, is not the city. It is a state called Hyderabad, which vanished in 1955. It was extinguished by the Union government by an act that parceled it into three parts. One part was called Telangana, where the majority of the people were Telugu speaking. Then districts in the north were separated and joined to Maharashtra, where Marathi people were the majority. And then some districts to the northwest were detached and joined to the state of Mysore, where Kannada people were a majority. So, Hyderabad state consisted of regions that were Marathi majority, districts that were Kannada majority, and a large number of Telugu districts.
So,
originally, the state was formed, or rather taken over, by the Nizam as the governor of the Mughal emperor. He was the Naib or governor, and he took the title of Asaf Jawan. And soon he became an independent ruler, transferring the kingdom to his descendants. Nevertheless, he retained the relationship of governorship to the Mughal emperor until the Mughal emperor himself came under British rule. Now, the Nizam was the first Indian prince to have become the vassal of the British. In 1800, it was the second Nizam who was not able to face up to the pressures of the Marathas, who, in spite of their defeat at Panipat, beat him back thoroughly and cornered him. Earlier, he had collaborated with the British to defeat Tipu Sultan, and as a reward of which, he got some Kannada speaking districts. and also parts of present Rayalaseema. Later on, after collaborating with the British and finally defeating the Marathas, he got some Marathi speaking districts from the Marathas. And this is how the Hyderabad state became a combination of Maratha speaking, Kannada speaking, as well as Telugu speaking people.
Very
The
interesting.
original state, yes.
Very interesting bit of history that you touch upon, making youngsters, especially the ones who might not have had much interest in history and they've taken to sciences or otherwise, even the ones who have taken to history also, to have them, I think, scratch their brains and probably revisit all this historically and understand, because this struggle does not just affect people in Hyderabad today, but Telangana, not just people in Telangana, but to parts of Rayalaseema, parts of Karnataka, and parts of Maharashtra. So, if we were to call today's Telangana as a percentage of the whole of Hyderabad of that time, what would this percentage be, Rahulji, before we continue with what you're telling us?
About 50%, let us say.
So,
I'm
you
giving
feel
you
rough.
offhand figure.
Yes, offhand, based on how you see the
Yeah,
area extent. So,
I remember
today's,
this.
today's Telangana is 50% of the geographical extent of the land that was under the Nizam. How the Nizam has acquired it, we got a brief from Rahulji from the British, after British having taken over from the Mughals, and prior to that, their subservience, the Nizam's subservience to the Mughals in managing with the British later after the Mughals, and how they have helped the British fight against the Marathas and fight against the Tipu, and acquire more land to their control. So by far it was known that the princely state of Hyderabad was the largest princely state. Is that accurate, Rahulji?
Yes, it became the largest. It was as it is large. You see, we should know who the first Nizam was.
Okay.
A little background. The Nizams are descended, not directly, but descended linearly from one Sufi order called Naqshband, the
Okay.
founder of the Naqshband order. That order is important for two reasons. It is a follower of that order, Ahrar, who initiated Babar. Babar had become Sufi and has written some Sufi writings. And this order is, unlike other Sufi sects, this order is very Islamicist.
Okay.
And it first came into confrontation with the Mughals in Akbar's time, where one of its important leaders, Sarind, he criticized Akbar's religious policy and, in fact, virtually denounced him, though he did not publish his writings when Akbar was ruling because Akbar had a very strong temper. They were comfortable with Aurangzeb, and Nizam's grandfathers came from Central Asia. They served in the army with Aurangzeb even from his father's time, and they helped to conquer Deccan. So they were very familiar, including the first Nizam, were very conversant with the politics of Deccan. They knew the persons, they knew the terrain. After Aurangzeb died, the Nizam got into power struggle at Delhi, and he even became the Prime Minister of India.
Okay. Which year was this,
This was
Rahulji?
around 1920.
Okay.
He managed to defeat the Sayyid brothers who were Shias.
Okay.
See, after Aurangzeb, what happened is the Shias became from Lucknow side, they became a little important. And apart from that, the Marathas also, they grew in strength. The Sikhs were a problem. And the most important Naqshbandi at that time was one person called Waliullah,
Okay.
Shah Waliullah. Shah Waliullah was close to the first Nizam, and he and his father had written letters to him asking them to wage jihad and take over India. In
Okay.
fact, he had a dream in which the first Nizam killed the Maratha Sardar. and ruled India. So that also he communicated in his letters. And Waliullah is a person who tried to revive Islam after the demise of Aurangzeb. He wanted to convert Muslim power in India into Islamic power. So
Okay.
he wrote letters to various rulers like um, Rampur Nawab, the Nawab of Bhopal, and he was in he was very frequent correspondent with Rampur, and he wrote to Nizam of Hyderabad as well. Uh, so the first thing, one of the things which Nizam tried to do after he became Prime Minister of India was to reimpose jizya. This is not normally related in history books, but there is one Shia history writer called Rizvi.
Okay.
He is, I think, based in Australia. There he has mentioned very clearly that Nizam tried to, as Prime Minister, tried to reimpose jizya, but the Hindu traders and moneylenders of North were very influential, and he was not able to get his way through. And when he failed, he was frustrated with the politics at Delhi, and he decided to come south where he would have independent power, untrammeled by this politics. So
Understood.
he took a large part of the army, took the naibship of governorship, that is governorship of Deccan, from the Mughal emperor, who was actually in his hands because he was the prime minister. And he came up with the army. His army was a composite army, largely Muslim, but with a large number of Hindus. He came first to Aurangzeb, but within a year, he must have decided that the Maratha pressure was too strong. And
And
so he
roughly
shifted.
which time
This is
frames is this? Which
1923,
oh,
1723 or 24
1723.
or
Yes.
24. And then he came to South. He was a good administrator, and he shifted to Hyderabad, which was further away from Maratha pressures. And he spent his life fighting the Marathas. Now, Nizam, after his failure with Jizya at Delhi, he did not try to attempt a Islamic rule. He wanted a Muslim power, preeminence of Islam, but not Islamic rule, because there were too many Hindus whom he needed uh, to fight the Marathas itself, for instance.
Okay.
So there were about a dozen samsthans, Hindu rajas in the Deccan area, whose military support he needed to fight the Marathas. And then he needed support of a lot of Shias. You see, these Sunni Sufis, they don't regard Shias also as acceptable, or they are not comfortable with Shias as Muslims. So Shias had to be put. He had already defeated the Sayyid brothers, and but he needed both Shia arms as well as Hindu military support. He had plenty of Hindus in his army. He required the support of Samsthans, and he also employed a large number of Shias who came over from Bijapur, because Bijapur and also Hyderabad, old Golconda, this thing was ruled by the Shias. So all these Shias flocked into his army and his court, so that he could never bring that kind of Sunni Islam which the Naqshbandis wanted. And he himself got initiated in the Chishti order by Aurangabadi, Nizam al-Din Aurangabadi. But there was a system of interlocking initiation those days. That is, they used to take multiple gurus so that the orders get tied together. So anyway, so this is the background in which the first Nizam had to operate, and therefore his rule was never fully Muslim, never fully Islamic, never truly Islamic. At the highest level, the Islamic law was implemented, but at all lower levels, variety of laws were implemented. The Arabs had their own court. The Afghans, they had their own courts. And then for the rest, at a urban level, there was some court. And at the district and local level, Hindu law was applied wherever this thing. So it was a very loosely kind of organized system. The top level, it looked a little monolithic, but it was never fully Islamic or Muslim.
in this entire region that we are talking about, Rahulji, almost panning beyond 200 years of the Hyderabad Mukti Sangram. uh, will it be right to say that the subjects, that is the people who are being ruled by this leadership, are predominantly Hindu? What percentage of the population is Hindu?
Yeah.
And how did they accept this person as their ruler, and were they happy as against the popular belief that the Nizam is a fantastic administrator, is what we hear? While we will not want to deal with politics, but there's so many roads that you open up in your conversation, especially about history, which is a distant background or a distant foundation for our conversation today. But we'll touch upon that, and then we'll take this step to move ahead into our liberation struggle. And having given so much background to our viewers, so tell us about the subjects of this ruler. What do you think they thought about their ruler through those 200 years of changing hands from generation to generation? And then coming to the times just before the liberation, tell us about this thing, about his good administrative thing. And but how did he turn, or his last generation, or the Mir Usman Ali, as we know, the last Nizam before the the final liberation of Hyderabad and unification with Indian Union, turn out to become a violent and a barbaric ruler? Or at least tell us more about that bit. And also, how come all these subjects, at least the rural folklore, is plenty about the actions of the Nizam or the discrimination? Is the folklore some figure of imagination? And our politics so very different, especially in the urban lands, that people only think of Nizam as a great administrator, but the rural side is all full of hatred for the Nizam. So tell us, bridge that gap in the 200 years, Rahulji, for us to get ready for the liberation.
Before I get into it, I would like to clarify 2 points. First, there was not the Nizam, there were 7 Nizams.
Yes.
I talked about the first in such detail because that is where the foundation was laid. The second Nizam became the first Indian vassal of British.
Okay.
After that, the Nizams did not rule for 4 generations. That is
Okay.
to say, the third Nizam, the fourth Nizam, and the fifth Nizam never ruled. It was the British that ruled through the prime ministers, some of whom were Hindus, two of whom were Hindus, or one, I think, that is Chandulal Baradari, is
Okay.
named after him, Raja Chandulal, and others were Muslims, very often Shias.
Okay.
The prime minister, the best prime minister who is known to Hyderabad today because of the new museum that is established by his grandson,
Alarjang.
Salarjung Museum, was Salarjung I, who ruled for, for through 3 Nizams,
Okay.
including the sixth Nizam, Mahbub Ali Khan.
Okay.
So it
So
was the Shias or Hindus who were prime ministers. The British, whose writ ran to a large extent, they didn't interfere too much. What they wanted was their money and a policy that would not hurt their interest.
okay.
So, in fact, sometimes Nizam even went away from Hyderabad because he was unhappy that his word would not run. Now, actually, the first Nizam who actually started ruling Hyderabad was the sixth Nizam, Mahbub Ali Khan,
Okay.
who became the Nizam at the age of 2 when
Okay.
Salarjung I was the prime minister. And after Salarjung I died in 1883, he actually started ruling.
Okay. So the
So,
transfer of power.
therefore, these are 2 Nizams whose actual rule we have seen.
Okay.
That is Mahbub Ali Khan and Usman Ali Khan.
Okay. So
Now,
as the popular belief that Hyderabad was ruled for hundreds of years by Nizams has been busted by you. What you have told us and told the viewers is there's a power arrangement from almost like the king and the prime minister, which generations the king was in power and control, and who the powers at the highest level, that is whether it was the Mughals or later the British who have controlled, and how the Brits have instituted a system that has probably degenerated or disintegrated the Nizam's position or the control, and let the prime minister be in control of this whole region. And later, at some point, how the Nizam again regained the power and control, under what arrangements. You can throw some light on that. With Mehboob Ali Khan, like you said, at the age of 2, he steps back into power, and then Hyderabad sees 2 Nizams. And their saga continues even today. We see that there's a lot of hype and attention given to generations after that. So we will not dwell too much into that aspect. We'll again refocus back at our liberation struggle. But tell us a little bit about Mehboob Ali Khan and the Mir Usman Ali Khan.
See, Mehboob Ali Khan had Sufi leanings. I'm not sure. I couldn't find out which order he was initiated into. So he was able to take along the religious beliefs of a number of Hindu nobles at the top level. What was happening at the lower level, there are no records. There were 15 Hindu samsthans in Nizam's area who controlled 10% of the population and a large part of the revenue. But even the political mapping of these samsthans was prevented by the Nizams. But Mehboob Ali Khan had taken some Hindu nobles as the prime minister and operated with them. He had some inclusive practices. And because of this, in the aristocracy at least, and at the upper level, he was a little popular. Even among the Hindus, there was, because of his reputation as a Sufi, there was a belief that his blessing would cure snake bite. Mm-hmm. And I was told by Nawab Akbar Ali Khan that he had instituted the practice of 3 Muslim nobles celebrating Hindu festivals in Hyderabad. He had mentioned one of this thing was Asmangad. I don't remember the other 2. And the festivals, I think, was Vasanta Panchami and 2 others. And 3 Hindu nobles would celebrate Muslim festivals.
Okay, so
at the top level, Mehboob Ali Khan built a kind of a syncretic culture or acculturation, mutual accommodation of Hindus and Muslims, for which Hyderabad is best known.
Okay.
But Mehboob Ali Khan started laid the basis for the Islamic, let me say, the basis for the rise of Muslim power in Hyderabad at the grassroots.
Okay.
And very innocuously, so we don't know whether he intended it or not.
Okay.
But what he did is, he changed the administrative language from Persian to Urdu.
Okay.
Because of this, a large number of AMU graduates who were being trained, the aim of AMU was to put Muslims in governance. That was there in their aims.
Can you again tell our viewers, Rahulji, time frames is after 1880?
1884 he took over.
84.
1886, I think he changed the language from Persian to Urdu.
Okay.
And he made Maharaja Kishan Prasad as prime minister, both at the same time. This balancing was done by Nizams. That is why they are called good administrators.
Okay.
If you cut something at the bottom, then you compensate it at the top, because the changes will come at the bottom.
And then
so in 1896, when the civil list of Hyderabad, consisting of 660 top bureaucrats, was published, over 90% were Muslims.
Okay, the change from Persian to Urdu has made that suddenly possible, or was it a gradual change that has made this numbers?
Not gradual. Actually, the founder of Aligarh Muslim University had come to Hyderabad in the time of Salar Jung I
Okay.
And he was refused an audience with the Nizam by Salarjung I because he did not have the court dress of Hyderabad, which was not the Sherwani kurta. Nobody
Oh,
knows that Sherwani came under Mehboob Ali Khan and Nizam,
okay.
7th Nizam. Our court dress was different. It was not this Sherwani pajama. So
Okay.
therefore, he was not given an audience. And though Salarjung was employing some AMU graduates, he was very careful to reserve the top post for Mulkis.
Okay.
It is Mehboob Ali Khan who instituted a policy of penalty for any Mansabdar of Hyderabad, Hindu or Muslim,
Okay.
from joining civil service.
Okay.
The Mansabdar locals were prevented from joining civil service, and from the north, a large number of Muslims were imported
Okay.
to change the
Rahul ji,
staff.
for the benefit of the viewers, can you tell us about the mulkis before we move ahead? What is this definition mulkis for our viewers?
See, Mulki is basically Hyderabad and Bijapur were ruled by Shias.
Okay.
And Hyderabad was actually called was under what the kingdom of Golconda.
Yes.
The administrative center was Golconda, not Hyderabad.
Yes.
Hyderabad was a place where the Golconda Sultan rested and
Yes.
where there was a big bazaar. So this the Golconda Sultans and the Bijapuris, the people who were there, they had come from different parts of this thing, from Iran. Then they were Africans, and there were some Pathans and Arabs also. But they had settled for such a long time that they had become little integrated with the Hindus because of the Shia influence. And the Golconda Sultan was so integrated that he appointed as prime ministers Akkanna and Madanna. He was
Yes.
a Sufi,
Yes.
and he received Shivaji personally when Shivaji went on his southward this thing, and also financed his military invasion of the south. That's how you got the Maratha kingdoms of the south.
So which ruler was this? Which
This
sultan
was the
from this?
last Golconda Sultan who was overthrown by Aurangzeb, and who Aurangzeb who ensured that Akana and Madana were beheaded for
Okay.
collaborating with Shivaji. And the first communal riots in Hyderabad also took place, communal riot between Hindus and Muslims. You should know that there were long series of communal riots in Hyderabad, but that was between Shias and Sunnis.
Okay.
The first known recorded conflict or riot, you can call it riot or massacre of Hindus, took place under the direct instigation of Aurangzeb, who sent his army with a letter saying that Akkanna Madana were to be beheaded. And while beheading these two brothers, I think it was probably Arabs and maybe Pathans, I don't know. They have ransacked all the Hindu temples from here to Machilipatnam, and a
Okay.
large number of Brahmins were killed. And again, this we don't know from history books, but we know from the will of the first Nizam. When he died, he wrote a will for his descendants. There he says that his descendants should ensure the preeminence of Islam. And one of the points in the will is that they should continue Pandit Khanas. So I never heard of this term in history books earlier. Then when I checked the translations of the will, there are two translations. The Pandit Khana was a special jail instituted by Aurangzeb for Brahmins
Mhm.
during his Deccan operations, because Brahmins were leading the resistance to the Mughals. And therefore, he instituted special jails called Pandit Khanas. And the first Nizam told his descendants, continue Pandit Khanas. So this is how.
On the lighter side, Rahul ji, for
uh,
our viewers on the lighter side, they should
uh,
know this the word khana comes or very generally used in two words that I can connect with. One is jail khana in Hyderabad, jail khana, that means it's a jail, and pagal khana, which is a mental asylum. So Pandit Khana is an interesting term that
There is
I've
also
heard for
Dawat
the first
Khana.
time. Yeah.
There is also Dawat
Yes.
Khana. So anyway, so what I'm saying is that they had this policy, and this was instituted basically to break the integrity or integration between Hindus and Muslims of the south,
So
which
so you
was
mean to say
primarily in
you
which
mean to
Shias
say
had a predominant role.
so you
That
mean
is
to
why
say
even today you find Hindus of the south participating in Muharram. It is
yes.
called Pirla Pandaga.
Yes, yes. In fact,
And that,
Rahulji, this is an
uh,
interesting thing you raise here, that things were not as bad, though there was a Muslim ruler on the top. He was an inclusive person and he knew that his subjects were predominantly Hindu, and his Sufi and Shia leanings have helped him probably value this diversity in his region, and he's institutionalized some things, all this, and maybe it continued, and that is why this kingdom lasted. And thereafter some changes that were perceived post, you can say, the first war for independence or the first freedom struggle of 1857, post which some changes have been perceived by Muslims in different parts of the country, especially the Nizam, because Mehboob Ali Khan seems to be coming in after that, and this Aligarh Muslim University and the Urdu influence. So, which direction was it heading from there? From the sixth
yeah,
Nizam?
yeah, yeah. You see, the point is why did change from Persian to Urdu become so important?
Yes,
Persian is a foreign language both for Muslims and for Hindus.
yes,
So therefore, like English, Hindus and Muslims had the same advantage or disadvantage while studying Persian, which was the administrative language.
okay,
So therefore, recruitment, chances of recruitment, everybody had was equal. And it
okay,
depended on your family influence and so on, so forth, your merit, everything. You know
okay,
how things work in feudal systems.
yes,
But the moment it was changed from Persian to Urdu, Muslims had a decided advantage, especially the northern Muslims. So southern Muslims those days used to speak Dakhani, which if you hear, you even hear Urdu, it's not accepted as Urdu.
yes.
So the northern Muslims were the
Rahulji,
first person.
before you move ahead, now tell us that one question: who are Mulkis? Before we move ahead with this Deccan and the North Muslims, who were these Mulkis?
People see the Muslims who had settled under the Shia rulers of Deccan
Okay,
for 200-300s, other
okay,
than the Mughals,
uh-huh,
other than the people who came from Iran, Turan, Central Asia,
uh,
through Delhi to Hyderabad, people who came from other parts, they had become almost for 200-300 years, they had stayed here, and they were the Mulkis.
okay, got it, Rahulji.
All the northerners, whether Hindu or Muslim, were regarded as non-Mulki.
Understood. That's a good.
So first thing which Mehboob Ali Pasha did was to transfer the instruments of power or the operative instruments of power to non-Mulkis.
Okay,
Now, northern Muslims were always, since the time of Aurangzeb, more communal than the local Muslims.
understood.
For the local Muslims, he had these integrated festivals.
Yes,
But with these northern Muslims, he saw to it that the local Muslims don't get into bureaucracy. Any Mansabdar who tried to join the bureaucracy had to pay a penalty. So
to
whether it
keep
was local Muslim or Hindu,
to keep them away,
bureaucracy was
to keep
then
them
the
away.
next step, which was taken was the change of the medium of instruction in schools.
Okay,
Salarjung I had started modernized Hyderabad state. He was a Shia Arab, and he started the school system in all the districts of Hyderabad. I think he started something like 450 schools. One third of the schools, that is 150, were in vernaculars.
mhm,
That means in Marathi, in Kannada, and in Telugu. This was the medium of instruction. The remaining were in Persian.
okay,
So therefore, school education was open to all sections of society. Mehboob Ali Pasha in 1906 made Urdu medium compulsory.
Oh,
As a result, Hindus started dropping out of schools.
okay, got it.
Then 1918, the seventh Nizam, he started Usmania University and converted it into Urdu medium.
Okay,
By 1919, that is after Usmania University was started, converted to Telugu medium, started and
1919, Urdu.
converted to Urdu medium. Uh, the Muslim share in collegiate education became 7.5 times their population share.
Understood.
So therefore, that was a huge leap forward.
Yes.
Plus, already during the time of Mehboob Ali Pasha, the top bureaucracy had become predominantly Muslim.
So what is the
So
purpose?
the chances of of employment for
What is the
Muslims also became multiplied.
So basically, this change was brought in through education system, a language change with an objective of increasing the footprint of Muslims in administrative services and politics and control.
Yes, army already was mainly Muslim.
Okay.
So Hindus had virtually lost any prospects of promotion in armies. It had gone under Muslim control.
Okay, was this Rahulji? Was this change in anticipation of a big change at some other level, some decades down the road, keeping the fact that at some point the British will have to give freedom, or how did this? What
See,
was
see,
perceived?
that is what I'm saying. One of the attributes of a good administrator is that he does not reveal his complete mind. He takes one step at a time in a balanced fashion or a balancing way, but he allows each step to be perceived in its own. The full design is never revealed.
Okay,
So we do not know actually what's transpiring in their mind, to what degree this was forethought. That requires a separate research and study. It can be
okay,
reconstructed perhaps, but
okay,
that has not been done. Now, this is the basic transformation in employment opportunities, and it went so far that by 1930s, about 80% of the government employment, 80-85%, was in the hands of Muslims, manned
okay,
by Muslims. That is according to Munshi, K. Munshi.
okay. Okay.
But Sundaraya has written in his book that
Can you
more
can
than
you tell?
90%.
Yeah, Rahulji, can you please tell the viewers what was the role of Munshi ji, or KM Munshi and Sundaraya? What were
Uh,
they?
K. Munshi came as the representative of government of India as the resident once the British left.
That is
So he has
60.
written his own memoirs where he has given an estimate which is somewhere around over 85, around 85%.
Okay, so this KM Munshi's entry has happened 15th August or 16th August 1947, when maybe
The
around,
exact date,
so
yes, it
dates
is
we don't know,
after independence
after
or before
independence.
independence. I'm not sure.
But
During
Hyderabad,
that arrangement,
Hyderabad,
transition arrangement.
but Hyderabad is not liberated or not freed yet.
That's why he came as representative of the Union government,
So he
uh,
replaced the British control,
British resident,
British resident in Hyderabad.
Hyderabad.
So in that capacity, his information, and then you also talked of Sundaraya ji. What is his role at that
See,
point?
Puchalapalli Sundaraya has was a leader of the armed struggle in Telangana, though he hailed from Andhra. He is actually a Reddy. He gave up his caste name. He has written a book on the Telangana people's armed struggle. In that, he has very clearly mentioned that over 90% of the government employment was held by Muslims, especially among the higher structure. So I think putting the two together, you can see that 10% of population, they were controlling 90% of this.
So
Now,
yes,
there was a change between the sixth Nizam and the seventh Nizam. And that change started from very early days because the seventh Nizam, right from the beginning, came under the influence, even as a teenager, was under the influence of Muslim Brotherhood.
Okay.
See, the sixth Nizam was given English education. The seventh Nizam was under the influence of Muslim Brotherhood, among whom we can name Faruqi, who became the religious head, Sadr Sad, and minister under his government later, and also became the vice chancellor of the Islamic University in Hyderabad. I think that name, you can check what the name is. Then Zafar Ali Khan,
So
who
this
later on
Muslim Brotherhood was an organization, or was it an
thinking,
untitled?
it was a thinking
Yes.
which originated among a small group of Aligarh Muslim graduates. And among the friends of Zafar Ali Khan, who was from AMU, for instance, a number of them were from AMU, including our Sania Mirza's grandfather,
So
uh,
AMU, for our viewers, is Aligarh Muslim University.
Muslim
So
University.
Muslims' perception towards what's ahead made them initiate this university in Aligarh, and that had its ramifications, changes, brought about changes across the country amongst Muslim thinking mindset, and now Muslim Brotherhood, part of the influences of Mir Usman Ali Khan, who's the last Nizam Hyderabad had seen. So Rahul ji is talking about that.
Yeah, so even before Usman Ali Khan became the ruler, while his father was still alive, he was under the influence of these people, and they started the first time an organization to convert Hindus to Islam somewhere around 1906 during the floods. And that ran into trouble because Maharaja Kishan Prasad was the prime minister at that time. And finally, Zafar Ali Khan was expelled from Hyderabad. But shortly later, Mehboob Ali Khan died.
Rahul ji, I'll
Yeah,
take a pause.
yeah,
Mahati ji was calling,
sure, sure.
so I'll just while the recording. So, Rahul ji, continuing with what we've been talking. So, can we sum up this thing about then was the Nizam, the last Nizam, or his actions violent and barbaric, and because they have got into the the Telangana's rural folklore. Am I missing anything?
Yeah.
So,
You
what do you
see,
have to say?
the last Nizam was a good administrator in two senses of the word. He was a good administrator in the sense that he built certain modern institutions. He was a good administrator in that he chose some merited people at the very top, if not all. And he was a good administrator in the sense of balancing his actions.
So, Rahul ji,
Huh.
this sounds very, very diplomatic. This
Yeah.
answer for batting, it's appearing like at one point you're batting for
I'll,
the
I'll,
Nizam.
I'll give you an explanation.
But what about the
He was
intention?
associated with barbaric activities,
Yes.
but his own barbarism was relatively limited
Okay.
to the choice of his harem. He had a
Yes.
few thousand women, and that was quite barbaric. He liked someone, the persons would come, and the lady had to go. There have been cases where Muslim nobles married in a haste their daughters because the Nizam had seen her. Uh, in one case, he liked the Quran of the editor of Siyasat,
Hmm.
who refused to give it because that was a prized copy, and then not editor of Siyasat, his uncle. Then he seized his entire property.
Okay.
That was within law. See, this was Jagirdari system. The Muslim Jagirdar and Hindu Jagirdars technically had the same law, but there was a custom of reversion of the property of the Jagirdar to the Nizam, which was followed strictly in the case of Muslim nobles, and
Understood.
not so strictly, usually not, in the case of Hindu nobles.
Okay, so in the public eye, he is a good administrator, so to say. So at a personal level, he might be very different. But what
And,
about
no, no,
his intention?
his good administration was limited to the city.
Okay,
Now, the point is association with barbarism came because of the patronage he extended to Islamism.
Okay, so
See,
we'll talk
once
about that. We'll talk about that through another question, because that is an interesting bit. Our current generations would have to hear this out. A very pointed question that will be on MIM, Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin. How did this get created under the very aegis of the Nizam or Mir Usman Ali or Mehboob Ali? What exactly had happened? What was the purpose this vehicle was created, and what were the objectives? Did that organization achieve its goals before they were wound up? Tell us about, and also tell us about this word Razakars. We hear a lot, but it is not there in open. There are not much the current generations will get to read about it unless they read the book you translated, which is Liberation Struggle of Hyderabad. So tell our viewers through this, what is this MIM, purpose, objectives, and the Razakars.
once the administration had become Muslim majority, the next step was to ensure the political strength of Muslims. This required two things. Muslims were only 10%. So it required demographic change. But demographic change was difficult as long as the Hindus were politically strong and united or had many voices. So therefore, the Muslims had to have a single voice which would correspond to their administrative strength, so that politically also they would become strong. So under the seventh Nizam, conversions drives started in districts. And finally, they spread even to the city in mid 1920s, led by a young Madhavi Pathan called Bahadur Yar Khan, who founded an organization called MATI, MATI. He converted 24,000 Hindus in just a matter of 3 years.
Mhm. Is he the same one who's termed Bahadur Yar Jung? Is it
Yeah,
the same?
in 1930, he was a very great, effective speaker. One of his speeches was attended personally by the seventh Nizam, who cried, shed tears on hearing his oration, and he conferred on him the rank of a noble.
Mhm.
And he became Bahadur Yar Jung.
Okay.
Shortly later, a few years later, he became the president of MIM.
Okay, that's interesting.
So, therefore, political unification of Muslims was the next on the order of the day.
So,
Conversions had a problem because they invited a Hindu backlash.
so the roots of MIM lay in Bahadur Yar Jung and his actions to convert Hindus en masse to Muslims at
No,
the
no,
rural
no.
level.
But no, MIM was started 1 year after Mati
Okay.
by a retired government bureaucrat in the Department of Religious Affairs,
Okay.
which means it was directly controlled by Nizam's teachers. Nizam
Okay.
teacher had become the Minister of Religious Affairs. He was the Vice Chancellor of Islamic University. And the bureaucrat who had worked under him and retired, he started this Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin. The word itself means it is assembly for the
Congregation.
unification of Muslims.
Okay.
Why did you need to unify Muslims?
Yes.
That shows the administrative skill of Nizams. There were innumerable quarrels among Muslims, among different sects of Muslims, and very frequent riots between Shias and Sunnis.
Okay.
The last major riot, the point is that both the Nizams, last two Nizams, effectively kept out the news of such riots from the newspapers.
Okay.
So even a PhD thesis on Shias is puzzled that there were so many riots in Lucknow, there were no riots in Hyderabad. She doesn't know. I know because it is written in my grandfather's book. In 1920, there was a major riot between Shias and Sunnis, after which Nizam suppressed the Shias.
Okay.
As
So
it is,
communal riots in Hyderabad, the erstwhile Hyderabad, actually is a riot between the Shias and Sunnis more
Sunnis,
than Hindus and
the
Muslims.
first communal riot between Hindus and Muslims after Aurangzeb's riots. where there were Hindus, Brahmins were massacred. The first major in modern times was in 1938.
Copy it,
Till
Rahul.
that time, most of the Hindu-Muslim riots were confined to the districts where Arya Samaj was resisting conversion of the Hindus. See, in the districts, the drive was led by other organizations, especially Dindars were very active.
Okay.
So they were converting Hindus. And in 1920s, the Arya Samaj started resisting the conversion and reconverting Hindus.
Yes. So,
So demographic change ran into this problem. Then another plan that was entertained by the Nizam was to bring the Moplas and settle them into Hyderabad.
okay.
After the Mopla, you know those Mopla rebellion and how many Hindus were slaughtered.
Yes.
But unfortunately, the British were too powerful then. So
Okay.
the
This is
resident put his foot down and that was also stopped.
okay.
So the only alternative now, since demographic change was having problems, was to unify the Muslims.
So that
For
unification of
that,
the Muslims.
MIM was started.
So unification of Muslims, because we have not understood till date that the requirement to unify Muslims was, we always thought Muslims were united. We didn't know that all the communal riots were between Shias and Sunnis. So we didn't know. So thanks
Not
for
only
these.
between, there were riots between Shias and Sunnis, but in every locality there would be fights between Pathans and say Arabs. Arabs and Pathans were traditionally, at loggerheads. And so like that, there were different groups and sections.
So
That
now,
unification was the first 10 years of work of Muslim Majlis was
okay.
only for this. They
So
had
from
Basti
here,
level committees
so from
and
the purpose of MIM is understood when it started, Rahulji. But from there, where did it move on? The entry of Bahadur Yar Jung now, and
see,
then
the idea
MIM.
was originally there in the Muslim Brotherhood itself.
Yes.
The Muslim Brotherhood believed that in Islam, it is the Ummah that rules, not the king. So, for instance, even after Zafar Ali Khan was expelled from this thing during Mehboob Ali Khan's rule, shortly
So
later,
Zafar Ali Khan was the prime minister.
no. Zafar Ali Khan was the editor of a newspaper called Zamindar
Okay.
in Pakistan. He is called the father of Pakistani journalism.
Okay.
And he is a person who took bayat at the hands of Mahmud Hassan of Deoband.
Okay.
Bayat is an oath of allegiance
Okay.
for jihad.
Okay. Which year is
That may
this?
be limited. That may be limited purpose. Bayat.
Which year is this, Rahulji? Roughly.
This is around 1919. The memoirs which I read, that
Okay.
is among the people who took bayat at the hands of Mahmud Hassan,
Okay.
where Zafar Ali
One of
Khan
them.
was one of the persons.
Okay, so Bahadur Yar Jung comes, then Mati happens, then MIM starts for Muslim unification based on
Bahadur Yarjang also attended the first meeting of MIM.
MIM. Okay, and then MIM, how does it slip into the hands of
Ha.
Qasim Razvi?
No, yeah. So what happened is that once the 90 administration became predominantly Muslim, and within 10 years, Muslims became politically and socially united. Then the idea again popped up. See, Nizam wanted Muslim power so that he could rule effectively. Muslims were his instrument on which he relied. Muslims began to think that they were ruling Hyderabad and Muslim Nizam was the figurehead. And this idea was once originally mooted by a professor of Osmania University.
So
And
you
that
mean
was
to
picked
say
up.
there's another power center under the aegis of Nizam that is growing in strength and size, which the Nizam did not foresee?
Did not foresee. In fact, he was very happy initially that Bahadur Yarjang became president. Then Bahadur Yarjang's oratory was such that tens of thousands would appear to listen to him.
Okay.
And he started propagating this idea, Anal Malik.
Okay.
Anal Malik means I am the ruler.
Yes.
That is, every Muslim is the ruler. Then what is the Nizam? Nizam is an emanation of Muslim power.
Yes.
So the first step towards Islamic rule,
So he is the fountainhead of this Muslim idea.
it is the ideology of direct rule.
Yes.
And that is what worries me when I open some sites of MIM today.
Yes.
online, then I found that the first page is devoted to Bahadur Yarjang.
Okay, got
And
it.
Bahadur Yarjang, who is the person who brought the idea that Muslims are the ruler in a state where 90% people are Hindus.
So then we have to trash the current propaganda or narrative of the MIM leaders who are saying they've contributed to the freedom struggle and they are secular. That is a myth.
Direct rule is the idea which came to Hyderabad. Direct rule of Islam Muslims is the idea which came to Hyderabad not from Jinnah.
Okay.
It came from Bahadur Yar Jung, who is one of the founders of MIM and who became the president of MIM in 1938.
Okay. So philosophically, we've understood MIM and how it started becoming an instrument for the Nizam for his plans. When did it become
Now,
military? When did it?
Bahadur Yar Jung also started the organization called Razakar.
Okay, it was
What is
Bahadur Yar
Razakar?
Jung.
What is the meaning of Razakar? Raza is assent. Razakar is the person who gives assent. Assent to what? The rule of Ummah.
Okay.
So this is an original idea of Muslim Brotherhood. You even find it in Egypt and the Islamist movements which are going on everywhere. They are inspired with the idea that it is Muslims who rule, but they are Muslim
So
majority countries.
So, who were joining to become Razakars? Was it the Muslims from the erstwhile Hyderabad, and who were supplying weapons to them? And where
See,
were these
see, see,
weapons
see,
coming
see,
from?
don't think that there is one Razakars. There were Razakars also in Bengal.
Okay,
Bangladesh, for example, the rape of Bangladesh university girls was directly organized by the Razakars of Bengal,
okay,
who led the Pakistani army and showed them the ways.
okay,
So therefore, Razakars are not exclusive to Hyderabad. But in
okay,
Hyderabad, because Razakar simply means one who gives assent. Assent to what? To Muslim power, to
okay.
direct rule of Islam. So
Yes.
therefore, Bahadur Yarjang started also the Razakars.
Okay.
But Bahadur Yarjang's strength was his oratory.
Oh, correct.
And he organization also was there, but oratory was his real skill and strength. When
So,
he died
yes.
suddenly, then some other person was elected, but people were not happy. And then Nizam got this lawyer from Latur
Qasim
called
Razvi.
Qasim Razvi and made him the president of MIM.
Got it. So, what was the strength of the Razakars at this point when Qasim Razvi took over?
We don't see even the fact that Bahadur Yarjang started the Razakars, I got great difficulty.
Okay.
Maybe it is there in some Urdu documents, I don't know. But so we don't have that full information until independence, because that is the time when the government of India wanted information on the numbers.
So it grew. It grew. It started with Bahadur Yar Jung and later came into the hands of Qasim Razvi. This is around 1939, 1940. Now we are talking about,
Yes,
and
little
it
later.
grew the Razakars, which are who are the you can say the tools or the soldiers of this whole ideology who are going to enforce or implement the ideas of MIM and under the patronage of the Nizam. What numbers did they grow to at the time of in Hyderabad's liberation?
See, at one time they even reached 1.5 lakhs.
Okay.
And in order to increase their strength, because Nizam started feeling vulnerable right from 1946 when he realized that British will quit.
Yes.
And that means power will come to Delhi.
So World War II had got over practically, and Nizam is
Yes.
able to sense
So
it.
once the riots started across North India after this direct action, etc., etc., and the plans for partition came out and the partition riots started, then lakhs of people from North India started being imported by train load into Hyderabad,
Yes.
and almost tens of thousands of them joined the Razakars.
Okay.
So therefore, the Razakar force went up to at one time 1.5 lakhs or so,
Okay. While
and
there
they
are
were being trained by the
unofficial figures
Hyderabad
of half a
army.
million. Yes.
Huh? Huh.
The unofficial figures of the numbers reaching half a million, that is 5
Yes.
lakh Razakars, but no, we don't know. You
No,
are an
no, quite
expert
true, quite
researcher.
possible. See, the point is, I don't remember the figures right now because there was a very rapid growth.
So you mean to say these three forces, the unofficial army of the MIM, you can say under the patronage of the Nizam, then this is number one, then the Nizam's army and the Nizam's police, all three were collaborating to do what they are wanting to do in the in the years to come.
Yes, and the polarization of the Hindus started around 1930s in
Okay.
Telugu areas, if not
So
before that.
so all this is there in the book Hyderabad Liberation Struggle through
No,
various chapters and
no,
stories.
no. This is additional information, background information that I am giving.
Okay.
Hyderabad Liberation Struggle is the book which I have translated consists primarily of the episodes where people have fought to liberate Hyderabad. So each chapter details some episodes centering on a set of characters which may range from one or two to sometimes 100 and more. For
Understood,
example,
Rahul.
so therefore it doesn't give the background reading or knowledge that is required.
So different episodes will narrate the stories as they have happened at a different level, whether it is a few villages together or a single village or a household
Or sometimes
against
entire districts. For example,
district.
the peasant agitation
Yes.
of North Marathwada and Karnataka border districts, that covers about 4 5 districts, three
So
four districts.
it could be against a policy of the Nizam, it could be against the Razakars directly, or it could be against the police and the Nizam's army,
Yeah,
depending on what they have done. And I
correct.
also remember reading other episodes of how these forces that were working, or you can say the revolutionaries were working against and helping Hyderabad get liberated. How they were doing what they were doing, whether it is looting a bank to generate revenues and things like that, which are also very interesting read in the book Hyderabad Liberation Struggle. So apart from that, while this is happening in one dimension, Rahulji, tell us what were the communists doing in this region, Hyderabad, the erstwhile Hyderabad, and during the years before liberation and after liberation in brief. Tell us, because somewhere the communists keep confusing people with their writings. Not that I want to be biased, but somewhere I want to hear from you, a researcher who knows the communists, who knows who understood MIM, Razakars, the Nizam, and the common people.
See, initially the communists were working on a low key and under the front of Congress Socialist Party, Andhra Mahasabha, and Urdu writers.
Okay.
So they were a large number of communists, but they were under these banners, not under their own banner. It is in 1940 or so, exactly year I cannot tell you, but around that time, when the communists walked out of the Congress Socialist Party and Andhra Mahasabha with the majority of the members. In Telangana, only a few people like from Congress Socialist Party, like Chenna Reddy, Konda Lakshman Bapuji, and a few others, they were left behind. But the major leaders of Congress Socialist Party and Andhra Mahasabha, like Ravinarayan Reddy, Badam Milla Reddy, and so on and so forth, they walked out with the bulk of the membership. And that was possible also in 839. There were mass rustications of students due to Vande Mataram agitation, which was launched by the state congress and also Arya Samaj, etc. Now, these students who were
Just
rusticated,
tell the viewers, Rahulji, about the Vande Mataram movement. When what was the Nizam trying to do, and what were the students trying to do?
see, at that time, because not only the medium of education had been changed to Urdu, even the Telugu dress, which was dhoti and kurta mind you, that was not allowed. In schools and colleges, people had to wear only pajama kurta and I think sherwani, I'm not sure. And they could not say Vande Mataram, let alone sing Vande Mataram. Now that was banned. So when this was banned, that was taken up as an issue by RS March and Congress, State
So
Congress,
the
etc.
Nizam had banned this, Rahulji?
Yeah, Nizam had banned it. So there
Yes,
was this movement called Vande Mataram when people would shout Vande Mataram or sing Vande Mataram, and that led to a lot of beating, lot of repression. The most famous case being one Ramchandra Rao, who is
yes,
known to us as the
yes.
founder of the Ganesh, reviver of
So,
the Ganesh Utsav.
yes.
He got the name Vande Vande
Vande
Mataram
Mataram
Ramchandra
Ramchandra Rao.
because he was just 14, 15-year-old in the jail. He was arrested along with lot of other satyagrahis and was beaten with a stick. And every time he was beaten with a stick, he would shout Vande
Says
Mataram.
Vande Mataram.
And he was beaten hundred of times and he kept on
Heard
shouting
about
Vande
this
Mataram till he
heroic
fainted.
story, Rahulji, and this also, I think, makes part. Was this is this part of the Hyderabad Liberation Struggle
No,
episodes?
no, but there is a story that involves Vande Mataram Ramchandra's
Ramchandra
work.
Rao. Yes.
He carried
So that
out a
is
major intelligence operation, and that is detailed in the
So that is
Hyderabad Liberation
interesting for the
Struggle.
viewers that we
Yes.
have a hero also, which is Vande Mataram Ramchandra Rao, covered in Hyderabad Liberation Struggle. One of the chapters episodes do talk about him in one of the fantastic stories out there. So Rahulji, the next question would like to ask you is about we are you did cover part of this importance of history, but would like to hear from you because all this while there are a lot of IT viewers, like so I would like to ask, we are now in 2023 in Hyderabad, which is a premier IT hub of India. Why should the current and future generations read a book that deals with an event that happened 75 years ago? How is that event even relevant today? Well, you did talk of history, the importance that history will repeat if it is, not understood. But anything more you would like to tell people about this particular event, the Hyderabad Liberation Struggle?
I can say this much. The main reason for the liberation struggle in Hyderabad was Majlis Ittihadul Muslimin, not just the organization, not just the people who are there. The people, those generation has died, new generation has come. But the fundamental idea, the ideology, that is Anal Malik. I am the ruler. That is the idea on which Majlis was built. That is why I said when you open the online site, I think UP or something I just opened, and first page entirely dedicated to Bahadur Yarjung. They have no reason to remember Bahadur Yarjung instead of Owaisi unless they are going back to that way of thinking or they cherish and preserve that way of thinking and transmit it to the next generation.
Yes.
That is the way of thinking that led to partition. Nobody agreed to creation of Pakistan until direct action day. And direct action was possible because the Muslim masses believed that they can act on their own. They are a power unto themselves. So that idea that you are a power unto yourself, you are not accountable to normal processes.
Hmm.
That idea is being preserved organizationally, ideologically,
Even today.
even today, and that old consolidation of Muslims that we have seen, which was absent till 1920 until the Shias were suppressed. And even Rashiduddin Khan, Professor Rashiduddin Khan writes in his article that the Shias were last to join after the first riots of Hyderabad, 1937-38. That is, they were the last to join. Until then, they kept aloof. So
So would you
that
like to
unity is continuing and being enforced through various fora, which means that the threat continues to live.
So you would like to convey to the viewers, especially the ones who are tech savvy, who think parties like MIM might be secular, and some other Hindu parties are communal in their approach. That they are neither secular nor are they nationalist. They never. They also, because these parties, the so-called Muslim secular party MIM, says that it has never supported partition based on religion. There are those claims true? Should they even believe such claims?
See, MIM does not have to support partition because they were ruling Hyderabad.
Yes.
So they didn't want a Muslim majority state, they wanted a Muslim minority state.
Hmm.
In Hyderabad, they didn't want a Muslim majority state, they wanted a Muslim minority state in Hyderabad where they ruled.
They rule. They
So,
rule
therefore,
before.
at that time and this time, the idea is that the Muslims should rule. The difference is that time their instrument was Nizam. Today, they are trying to use democratic means through alliances. They are trying to have an indirect rule. Just like they had indirect rule through Nizam, they are seeking wider alliances. So their language, their presentation, etc., is same. But the basic idea that Muslims are one set of people, which is itself false. That basic idea at that one set of people should exercise power. This basic idea is the running thread through the organization. If Muslims are allowed to be freely different and diverse as they are, as they were, before this kind of consolidation across India, they did this in the name of Pakistan. In Hyderabad, they did it in the name of Muslim rule over Hyderabad. Now the
Understood.
instrument has changed, democracy has gone, Nizam has gone. I'm sorry, democracy has come, Nizam has gone. So therefore, now through new instruments, they are trying to perpetuate old ideas. They have modernized. There is no doubt about that. Their language is different, their sophistication is different, their approach to social issues is different. But primarily, all these are instrumental to perpetuate or to acquire or impose Muslim rule. So I am not saying that they are communal. What I am simply saying is that they are driven by the idea of power to one community, a
Yes.
community that is a minority in this country.
Understood.
Whether they want to share that power, whether they will include, whether they will put a mayor who is a Hindu, and therefore they are secular, these are not debates that I am capable of entering. But what I can definitely say is this is their drive originally, and this is the drive that they continue to have, and therefore history lives on in presence. What will be the consequence of that drive for the majority of the people who are not as well organized or as militant? You see, never forget one saying of Gandhiji. He said, I have studied this question and encountered this problem throughout my years, even in South Africa. And he said, every Muslim is a bully and every Hindu is a coward. Now, every generalization has its limits. So, as a generalization, it is not correct. But the point is, there is a difference in the attitude and wielding of power between the communities. And that asymmetry is felt even today in our regions. That is why we wanted at Samvit Kendra that people should be aware of the consequences that this drive for power to a single community, whether direct or indirect, whether through social alliances or direct rule, what consequences it will have, that should not be forgotten. So if you
With
remember your history, you will be wary of what can happen in the present. That's all.
with research work of organizations like Samvit Kendra, Rahulji, I think, however modern a Hindu might become, at least he can shed the chance of ignorance which he is living in, and I think use this material to understand, learn, and form his own opinion, and be better prepared for the future, and contribute
And
in
and
any which way.
you see, uh, Khanderao Kulkarni's book also has got one episode involving a very important Muslim called Shoaibullah Khan,
Okay.
where who stood against the oppressive policies of Razakars and Nizam, who exposed the atrocities in newspapers when Hindu editors had to migrate from Hyderabad state for fear. His
Hmm.
own editor, Narsingh Raoji, had to migrate. He told Shoaib, you can't continue. He said, I will continue. And at the risk of his life, and actually paid for with his life. And there were so many other Muslims. Number of Muslims have been mentioned here that they may not be representative. There were still large number of Muslims who did not like this, who opposed it, either openly or covertly. through various organizations. So it is not a question of Hindus versus Muslims. It is not
Yes.
a communal question.
Yes, we are not here to make Hindus or the viewers at large to think that Muslims are our enemies. No, it is these policies, the people in power, and how they are manipulating the
This idea
system.
that a single community should rule or have access to power or exercise power, that there is one single community. Hindus
Yes,
never claim that they are all one.
there is a
We
very
say, yes,
famous
we have got
there is a very
plurality of
famous
beliefs.
there is a very famous line from the Nizam himself which says that he is the last sultan standing, and how he is entitled to rule the people, especially the Hindus, is a very popular one. I can't recollect it exactly.
You see, Nizam developed the ambition of becoming Khalifa because the Khilafate had fallen
Yes,
and the British gave him this idea. So he even got his family married to the Khalifa's
Turks.
family of Turkey,
Yes,
the Princess Nilofer and all that. And but only thing is he could not pursue that because he was not ruling a Muslim majority state,
yes.
and therefore he tried to have Muslim power as an instrument which will strengthen him. Instead, the people through whom you want to use an instrument, they started thinking we are the rulers and Muslim Nizam is a figurehead, and
Okay.
that is where the tables turned.
Rahulji,
Ah,
you can say the last two questions. One
yes.
is about what were the options available in front of the Nizam when World War is coming to an end. There's a demand for independence in India, and the whole the partition is kind of shaping up pre 1947, and that period. What were the options in front of the Nizam? Can you tell the viewers in one, two, three, whatever options he had, and how did he go about pursuing in writing or in any way?
See the idea of uh, proportionate representation to Hindus had become increasingly popular.
Okay.
And had Nizam accepted that idea, he would have continued to rule for a long time.
Yes.
With proportionate representation, lot of Hindus would have been satisfied. And naturally, with proportionate representation in politics, you would also get relative more proportionate representation in the administration. And over time, this asymmetry that had been built up by the sixth and especially during the seventh Nizam's time, that would have vanished.
So this
So
was the
there
best
was a
option he
chance.
did not exercise.
No, no, he opposed it. He opposed it, and instead he proposed the idea of 50% each, and that 50% came down to 40%, 45% for Hindus under different these things. So therefore, he did not want to include Hindus uh, uh, in proportion to their population.
Okay, now that is one part, Rahulji. As the time was running out of
Uh,
for the Nizam rule, and it was
mm.
pretty evident that the British are going to leave the British resident. So, what were those arrangements that the Nizam was doing at an international level, at the national level? Uh, can you tell the viewers about that, which might not be part of the book, but that will help them have the perspective when they are reading the book?
See, he started making, you see, first he started building. See, at home, first and foremost, he unleashed the Razakars. He didn't
Yes,
tell the Razakars, go and do this. Razakars did it because MIM said it is their power. Nizam is only figurehead, so they started doing it. He did nothing to rein them in spite of repeated representations, direct petitions to him. He just refused to do it. So local resistance and desire for independence or freedom, he started putting down in a very violent fashion, not direct use of his army and forces, but through these razakars and voluntary forces.
yes,
And then when this UN cry came that he was suppressing the majority, he started bringing the international press and taking them on guided tours to show that there was no problem anywhere. and he would take them through areas where relative peace was obtaining or would be imposed or appear. Then, apart from that, he started trying to get independent recognition for Hyderabad. He negotiated with the British, and he started saying that we were an independent ruler before the British ruled. So, therefore, independence must be returned to us. And then he continued negotiations with the government of India. When the government of India's demands became, could not face them directly, then he negotiated a standstill agreement. And then, using that standstill agreement, he started building up the armed forces. He started smuggling in arms by planes because it is a landlocked country.
Yes.
And he got some support from Pakistan, but Pakistan had its own troubles. But he managed to get his prime minister from Pakistan.
Yes.
The prime minister who was ruling was got from Pakistan by an arrangement. He was a member of the Pakistani cabinet
Like
and an industrialist, major industrialist. I don't remember the name.
Layak Ali or something.
Layak Ali, Noon Ali.
Layak.
So the Layak Ali was a major industrialist. He in fact took permission from Jinnah
Mhm.
before he came to Hyderabad and started ruling. So
And
that
there
was
was
a
an
degree of
attempt.
collaboration.
There was an attempt by the Nizam, the last Nizam, to also secure a port and access to the port.
He tried to buy, he opened negotiations to buy Goa from the
Okay,
Portuguese.
from the
He had a lot
Portuguese,
of
right?
money. This is an
Yes.
old habit of the Nizam family. Even during Aurangzeb, they had piled up huge treasures because that can serve as a foundation of power. So Nizam was known to be a miser and great collector of money by any means. He had piled up. So he wanted to use this treasure to buy up Goa so that they
And
would get a direct
and a
access
road
to the sea,
and a road access to Goa.
to Goa. So
Yes.
that did not transpire,
Okay.
but that negotiations were on.
Attempt was there.
Attempt was there.
Attempt was there. And what
Then
about joining Pakistan? Was there attempt also there? Why did he not collude with Jinnah? What exactly happened there in short for the
they
viewers?
see between Jinnah and Hyderabad there is India.
Yes.
So there is no way you can. The only reason East Pakistan got joined is because the government agreed. I mean, the Congress agreed and everybody agreed. Otherwise, it was impossible for East Pakistan to be created.
Yes.
So, similarly, Hyderabad, unless the Congress leaders had agreed, it would have been impossible. And with 90% population being Hindu, there
Hmm.
is no way that any Congress leader would have accepted accession to
But
Pakistan.
something that we understand did not go right between the Nizam and Jinnah. Something at what level? We'll not
See,
get into that. It is beyond our
purview.
book today. Yes,
Mm.
beyond our purview. But yeah, we can raise that and leave it for the audience to think about. But the last question, Rahulji, is uh, tell us under what arrangements did the Deputy Prime Minister and Home Minister Shri Sardar Patel facilitate the sidestep of the Nizam? What were those arrangements and the bloodless integration through police action? How did the violent Islamic forces get silenced and pave way for the liberation and unification of Hyderabad with Indian Union? So, what were those important activities which were taken up between the Nizam and the Indian Union for the Nizam to just sidestep and live in luxury after that? Lose the power but live in luxury. What exactly was that thing that has happened? That instrument which was signed between them. What we hear is these agreements, especially the trusts which were created by the Nizam that run into some 90s or some 90 plus trusts that he had created to facilitate all his family members, the readjusting the properties, and the Sardar Patel was not. He was okay with it. Take whatever you want. You tell, give us a list, whether it is jewels or whether it is lands or palaces. So, what exactly is that arrangement?
Nizam did not give power because Patel allowed him to keep his money. He would have preferred to keep his state and rule and give up his money in exchange for Goa and arms from the West. and even support from Pakistan. So it was not a kind of a voluntary exchange at the initiative of Nizam.
Okay.
He had to accede to the superior force of the Indian army.
Okay. Military might.
Superior military might. He had a lot of illusions that his Arab led army would be able to fight back the Indian army. And when Aurangabad fell, he is supposed to have gone into mourning
Hmm.
because that was a kind of both superstitious effect also. Nizam was internally highly religious.
Okay.
Because Aurangabadis, they were attached to Aurangabadis.
Yes.
So when once the Indian army crossed the border at Aurangabad and started advancing, then he was little this thing, and then within 3 days they had no time to think. Literally, the Indian army was near the gates of Hyderabad. So 3 or 4 days. It was a very short action, and the so therefore he had no option. Now the terms that were offered to Nizam were similar to the terms that were offered to all the other rulers. And Nizam's intelligence was that once he realized the game is up, he surrendered. He was meek. He accepted the terms. And there were many times when there was a possibility of accepting the terms without police action. But he used to put forward the objection, like objections raised by Majlis, which used to launch masses of people into the roads and attack his own government ministers.
Mm.
Then he will say, he will show plead helplessness and not sign.
Yes.
So now that the army had collapsed and Razakars were nowhere in the picture, they had all run away, those who were not captured by the army. So, therefore, he had no option and very sensibly accepted. And the terms were more or less similar for all the rulers. There was not much discrimination there. Nehru would have been, I'm told, recently I was reading this book by Mathai on his reminiscences. It's a very interesting work where he says that Nehru would have preferred more harsher terms to rulers, but Patel overruled him, and he was little gave more purses and all that he allowed to the rulers, which Nehru would not have liked. Same thing was also given to the Nizam.
Okay.
So that made a transition of power relatively easy.
And so, as our viewers know, Hyderabad finally was liberated. Hyderabad, as we call right at the beginning, is whole of Telangana, parts of Maharashtra, parts of Karnataka, was liberated on 17 September 1948, viewers, and not 1947, 15th August. And the people who are making a living in this land, Hyderabad or Telangana, and even living in parts of Maharashtra, Karnataka that have been part of the erstwhile Hyderabad, while politically we might have been divided, but culturally we were united, and our ancestors, our grandparents, and our fathers, and in many cases women, also have contributed to this fight against this rule that had evil plans in making this Islamic state. And we should be glad, lucky to have changed the course of the history of this land. And this book, Hyderabad Liberation Struggle, is an earnest attempt at bringing that into our drawing rooms, making viewers, get motivated to pick this book and read it. It's available on many platforms. Hyderabad Liberation Struggle, and Rahulji's effort goes a long, long way in making this book available to the English readers, while it was available in Hindi under the title Hyderabad Ka Mukti Sangram. And I'm sure there are many untold stories that have not been captured by this book, which are out there, plenty. And if you dig yourself, whichever part of this erstwhile Hyderabad you belong to, or if you are living here making a living, you will understand a lot of monuments, lot of things, and a lot of our viewers would even have got got the idea what was Hyderabad, what is Nizam's rule, what kind of an administrator was he, like Rahulji had summed up very well. And then the Islamic idea, the Anal Malik, the Razakars, Qasim Razvi, Layak Ali, all these have come into this conversation to make it an exciting one as part of the Samvit Samvaad. Thank you, Rahul Shastri ji. It's been a pleasure hearing you out. There's a lot out there, lot more that I think you would like to convey to the viewers. We'll have to take it on a separate topic, topic by topic. There's so many within this story called the Hyderabad Liberation Struggle. There's so much more to offer, and we will keep collaborating to do these more. Whether I get to do or anyone else, but some with Samvad will continue with great writers, researchers, philosophers like you, Rahulji. Dhanyavad. Namaste. Thank you. Jai
धन्यवाद.
Hind.
जय हिंद.